Republic, Alhaji Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, has launched the policy and guidelines for the National E-Pharmacy Program as part of government's ongoing efforts to improve access to and delivery of healthcare to Ghanaians. When fully operational in 2022, the e-pharmacy program is expected to transform access to pharmaceutical care in the country and make Ghana one of the handful of countries with a national-scale e-pharmacy in the world. Speaking in Accra on Wednesday, Vice President Bawumia recalled that a few years ago, at the annual general meeting of pharmacists, he challenged the pharmacists to explore greater ways of infusing technology into their operations in ways that, among others, improve access, efficiency, and the availability of medicines across the country, especially in rural and less urban areas. The challenge, he said, has since been taken up through the leadership of the Pharmacy Council, the Pharmaceutical Society, and other stakeholders, leading to the creation of the policy and guidelines for the National E-Pharmacy.
Today we are here to launch the policy on a top-tier innovation that will transform access to pharmaceutical care in Ghana, complementing the government's attempt to improve access and the delivery of health care to the near 30 million population.
Dr. Bawumia pledged government recognizes the gaps in the country's health infrastructure and is committed to filling as many gaps as possible in building the human resources in the country's physical infrastructure and in all complementary aspects of our health system.
While tackling the inadequate infrastructure in the health sector, it is disheartening to see people spend so much time moving from one pharmacy to the another in search of medication. The innovation in improving pharmacy access to our people through e-pharmacy can be a game changer in safeguarding the future of our youth and ensuring national and responsible access to medicines on a scale we have not yet been able to achieve. Today, we are adding to the growing list of digitized platforms. E-pharmacy should help us address concerns for the proliferation of fake drugs and licensed pharmacy operations, reduce disparities in the cost of medicines, and tackle some of the major administrative and delivery issues that affect the practice of pharmacy.
The introduction of the cutting-edge health technology, the Vice President emphasized, will help tackle at least 4 critical concerns in the healthcare system in the country.
At its full implementation, the National E-Pharmacy Platform will enable the public obtain genuine medicines from accredited pharmacies. Ladies and gentlemen, there is also the economy. The global e-pharmacy market is worth $81 billion today, and it is expected to grow to $244 billion by 2027. With the National E-Pharmacy Platform, Ghana will be part of this new pharmaceutical digital economy. The evidence from India that we have indicates that the National E-Pharmacy is likely to boost pharmaceutical sales by between 100 and 200%. So it is a win-win for all. As we embark on this new path, please do not hesitate to give feedback to the Pharmacy Council so that the policy and the system can be improved continuously with the ultimate goal of making it easier and safer for Ghanaians to access medicines in a responsible manner.
The Ghana National Fire Service is imploring Ghanaians to observe basic fire precautions to ensure that they do not fall victims to fire during the Christmas and New Year festivities. According to the service, the prevailing weather conditions made everything susceptible to fire and was therefore important for one to observe fire safety tips across the country. The acting chief fire officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, Julius Kuno, in his Christmas and New Year message to Guineans in a statement, said this with an outline of some fire safety tips to be observed in this festive season. He charged Guineans not to pour water into a pan when it catches fire during cooking, but instead use fire blankets, wet cloth or sack to cover the pot. He added once the fire is off, one has to wait a while before removing the sack, cloth or blanket and continue with the cooking. Again, the acting chief fire officer Julius Kuno urged all to switch off all electrical appliances when leaving their homes and workplaces. He advised all to ensure that when leaving home, all electrical gadgets such as TVs, radio sets, home theaters are switched off and unplugged from the socket. He further asked all vehicle owners to conduct early morning routine checks on their vehicles, especially the water and oil levels, and ensure that all electrical problems were taken proper care of by their auto electricians. He advised farmers to avoid burning as a means of clearing farmlands and grazing of cattle. The chief fire officer cautioned farmers who intend to burn/slash bushes as land preparation for crop cultivation should have bushfire volunteers on standby. Concerning the handling of naked light, he said proper care must be put in place in the handling of naked light. Candles, mosquito coils and lanterns should not be left unattended to, especially during this period. For this, he called on parents not to allow their children play with naked fire in order to avert any accident or fire outbreak. Further as to that, he cautioned drivers not to engage in overspeeding and overtaking to avoid road traffic collision as visibility has reduced. Beach revelers were also cautioned not to swim beyond the demarcated point.
Ghana recorded a growth rate of 6.6% in the third quarter, that is from July to September this year, compared to negative 3.2% in the same period of 2020. Professor Samuel Enim, the government statistician who announced this on Wednesday in Winneba, said non-oil GDP was 8.6% for the period. It stood at negative 3.0% in 2020. He said the gross domestic product, including oil and gas for the third quarter of 2021, was 43,093.5 million Ghana cedis compared to 40,044.3 million Ghana cedis in the third quarter of 2020. However, the GDP without oil and gas for the third quarter of 2021 was 39,904.4 million Ghana cedis compared to 36,823.7 million Ghana cedis in the third quarter of 2020.
From a constant prices point of view, again looking at it from both an oil and a non-oil perspective, we see an increase of 6.6 percentage points between the third quarter 2020 and the third quarter 2021, specifically with the third quarter 2020 standing at 40,440.3 million, increasing by about 3,000 million to 43,093.5 million for the third quarter of 2021. From a non-oil perspective, we see also about a 3,000 million change between the third quarter 2020 and the third quarter 2021, specifically with the third quarter 2020 being 36,823.7 million and the third quarter of 2021 being 39,974.4 million, indicating about 3,000 million change between the third quarter 2020 and the third quarter 2021. The 6.6 percentage growth rate that we've recorded for the third quarter of 2021 is about the closest that we've got even in the 2020 period when COVID-19 was just to set in. Indeed, in the first quarter of 2020, just ahead of the COVID-19, GDP for the period that is between the first quarter of 2019 and the first quarter of 2020, GDP was 7.0%. So this is the first time that we've recorded GDP growth rates that are higher than the GDP growth rate that we recorded throughout the COVID-19 period and has even edged closer to the GDP growth rate that we recorded during the pre-COVID-19 era, keeping in mind that we did record about 9.0 growth rate in the first quarter of 2019.
The Ghana Statistical Service revealed that the service sector recorded the highest growth of 13.4%, followed by the agricultural sector with a growth rate of 9.2%. Within the industry sector, the manufacturing subsector grew by 1.6% in the third quarter of 2021 compared to a growth rate of 1.8% in the second quarter of 2021.
And look at the subsectors that are driving the GDP growth rate within the three main sectors. The agricultural sector grew by 9.2 percentage points, and within the agricultural sector, the subsector with the highest growth rate was fishing, 14.3%, and the economy that grew the least was the forestry sector that grew by 2.7 points. It is important to emphasize the shares of the subsectors within each of the subsector. Indeed, within the agricultural sector, although the fishing sector, subsector saw the highest growth rate of 14.3%, its contribution is just 5.6% to the overall agricultural sector. The sector that has the highest share within the agricultural sector is the crop sector, of which cocoa is a component of it, which grew by 9.8 percentage point. It is important to emphasize that the 6.6 percentage growth rate that we saw in the third quarter of 2021 was mainly driven by growth rates in the crop sector that contributed about 1.43 percentage points.
Water supply, sewage, waste management and remediation activities grew by 1.5% in the third quarter as the construction sector recorded a 0.4% growth compared to 0.6% expansion in the second quarter of 2021. According to Professor Samuel Enim, in the service sector, education grew by 6.3% compared to a growth of 0.8% in the second quarter of 2021 as real estate, public administration and defense and social security each expanded by 4% compared with the 1.7% and 1.5% respectively recorded in the second quarter of 2021.
Within the industry subsector, we saw manufacturing recording the highest growth rate. It will be recalled that from a sectoral point of view, while agriculture and services sector saw an expansion, we did see a contraction of 2% in the industry sector. From a subsector point of view within the industry sector, manufacturing subsector contributed positively with 7.5%, and it has to be emphasized that it has the highest rate, although the NEC variation goes to mining and quarrying with 36.3%.
The government statistician also announced that the year-on-year producer price inflation rate for November 2021 rose to 13.6%, up from 10.6% the previous month. The rate represents a 3.0 percentage point increase in producer price inflation relative to the rate recorded in June 2021. Professor Samuel Enim said the month-on-month change in the producer price index between October 2021 and November 2021 was 2.8%. The producer price inflation, PPI, measures the average change over time in the prices received by domestic producers for the production of their goods and services.
The producer price inflation is estimated from the producer price index, which is captured by the relative change in the producer price indices, either on a month-on-month basis or on a year-on-year basis. Producer price inflation for the month of November 2021 stood at 13.6%, indicating a 3.0 percentage change between the month of November 2021 and the month of November 2020. On a month-on-month basis, producer price inflation, that is between October 2021 and November 2021, stood at 2.8 percentage points. This literally means that from a producer's point of view, on a year-on-year basis, prices of goods and services went up by 13.6 percentage points between November 2020 and November 2021. On a month-on-month basis, between October 2021 and November 2021, from a producer's point of view, prices of goods and services went up by 2.8 percentage points.